If you love wisdom, put your mind up to the ceiling. Don't let it stay in the gutter. Don't let your heart get all cluttered. No, I did not stutter. Listen to all that I've muttered. Your life will only go well if you win wisdom or lovers.
If you're in love with wisdom, come inside.
Come inside. Come inside.
The truth will surely rescue you and I.
You and I. You and I.
If you're in love with wisdom, come inside.
Come inside. Come inside.
The truth will surely rescue you and I.
Hey, what's going on? This is your host, JC Johnson, and you are listening to For the Love of Wisdom on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. Today, we're going to be talking about the wisdom of identity. And I have a special guest with me, Will the Thrill from the Lord's Will Show.
That's right. How you doing out there tonight?
All right. So we'll be back right after this. Stay tuned.
If you're in love with wisdom, come inside.
Come inside. Come inside.
The truth will surely rescue you.
Warning. Underground station coming to a radio near you. The underground starts with you.
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I? Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
This is your host, JC Johnson, and today we're asking the question, who am I? The wisdom of identity.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. You are listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets, and you are listening on northcoastunderground.com, where the underground starts with you. And my special guest today is Will the Thrill. What's going on, Will?
I'm doing all right. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well. You know, it's a good day. Can't complain.
It's a beautiful day outside. The sun is bright and shiny.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, most definitely. So if you are just tuning in, before the break, I had mentioned that today we're discussing the wisdom of identity. Identity. What is identity? We're going to get into that. But before we get too far into that, I really want to make sure that everyone who's listening for the first time, or maybe you haven't listened in a while, just want to make sure that you know what the show is all about. So the show idea comes from the word philosophy, actually. The word philosophy is broken down into two different Greek words. The first one is philo, which means love, and it's similar to Philadelphia. As you know, Philadelphia is called the city of brotherly love, and there's a reason for that. That word actually, Philadelphia actually comes from this root word philo, which means love, and the second part of that word is sophos. So it's like philo, sophos. Sophos means wisdom. So philosophy literally means for the love of wisdom, and that's what this show is about. It's a philosophical show. We are talking about everything that has to do with basically the world that we live in, understanding ourselves, understanding others around us, and basically seeing, what we can do with that. How can we make the world a better place just by knowing ourselves better, just by knowing others better, and just by having the right focus. So that's what we're talking about today. And every day really on this show. And today specifically, we are talking about the wisdom of identity. But last week on For the Love of Wisdom, we discussed the wisdom of tranquility. And we started a conversation about the serenity prayer, where it said, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. If you missed that show, you can always check it out. Currently it's on SoundCloud, it's on Mixcloud. You can also check it out on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or hopefully in a few weeks it'll be on Spotify. Takes a little while to get on that one, but yeah, definitely check out past episodes so that you can get caught up, so that you can basically know what it is that we're discussing, and I think that you'll enjoy it. All right, so for today, all right, Will, we're talking about identity, all right?
Yes, sir.
So I have the dictionary definition right here of identity, but why don't you tell me, when you think of that word, what comes to mind?
Well, I think identity is how I see myself or how the world sees me. Of course, it's two different questions right there. How I see myself is always going to be different than how the world sees me.
Right. Just looking at what the Oxford Dictionary has to say about the word identity. It comes from the fact of being. The fact of being who or what a person or thing is. The characteristics determining who or what a person or thing is. Serving to establish who the holder, owner, or wearer is by bearing their name, and often other details such as a signature or photograph. In other words, an identity card, a driver's license, a Sam's Club membership card, anything like that. Something that says who you are, what you belong to, things like that. So just, looking at that definition now, looking at it's the fact of just being who or what a person or thing is. Basically something that shows who you belong to. What does that mean to you?
Well, who I belong to the all-powerful God himself. And in Genesis chapter 1 verse 37, this is what it says. God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them.
Okay. Yeah, and that's definitely that's a powerful quote from scripture. We're actually going to be discussing that one a little bit later on in the show.
Awesome.
But when you read that though, because there's a lot in there. Why don't you break that down for us?
Well, the first part, let me pull it back up. God created man in his own image. We are made in the spiritual image of God. We were supposed to be these perfect, beings, which we're not. That's beside the point.
Right.
But that first part, we were made in his image. We were made to look like him. The second part, in the image of God, he created him. Him being man or woman. That's one of those gender non-specific words that you hear throughout the Bible.
You're going to get yourself in trouble. Well, why don't you explain that for those who are a little confused there? What are you talking about there?
When I say him?
Right. Because some people might say, well, so are you saying that God doesn't care about women? Is it only men? What's going on?
God loves all of his creation. Men, women, the animals, so on and so forth.
Right.
He loves all of his creation. The problem is his creation doesn't necessarily love him. And here, in the Bible, there's a capital H which refers to God and a lowercase h which refers to man. And man being man or woman.
Right. So just to clarify that, sometimes, especially in the older translations, specifically, when it says man, it doesn't necessarily mean men only, as opposed to not women, but it is humankind.
Right.
Overall, right? So.
Correct. And then the third part, male and female, he created them. Meaning God created us to look like him. We are supposed to have his identity, as you had talked about.
Right, and that's really important. Even as you think of your last name, it's no coincidence that you have the last name that you have, right? Because in most cases, that last name comes from your father.
Correct.
And that's how you identify yourself. You say, "Oh yeah, so Will, so your last name is Limley." So you identify with the Limley family, right?
Correct.
So as soon as somebody hears your name, they say, "Oh, you're
Will Lumley."
Yeah, you're what's your father's name?
His first name is Fred.
It's like, "Oh, Limley, oh, you're Fred's son," right?
I hear that all the time.
Right. So that they quickly identify you by that, just by a name. A name is powerful.
Yes, it is.
Right. And I think that because of lack of identity, that's the reason why there are a lot of bad decisions being made in the world that we're living in.
I agree.
So one thing that we're going to be discussing in a little bit is how finding our true identity, understanding that, can actually help us in our present life It can help us to get over things from the past that we've gone through, and it can also help us to move forward in the future. It's really important to know who we are, and we'll get a little bit more into that after the break. We are about to go, but before we go to commercial break and play a couple songs, let's just look at what is being. Being is what you are. What you are, as far as we talked about, you are Fred's son.
Right.
Will, right? You're not only that, you're so many other things too, but that's part of who you are, right? So who we are relationally, as far as your natural family, your parents, if you have children, if you have siblings, if you have cousins, your non-biological family, neighbors, friends, colleagues, classmates, all of that speaks about who you are and who you belong to, who you don't belong to, who you identify with, who you don't identify with. It's all really important. So that's just a little bit of a precursor there. We're going to get more into that after the commercial break, but you are listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets.
If you can run a better radio station, prove it. Take over.
NorthCoastUnderground.com. The Underground starts with you.
It's your boy, Tear It Up, Tommy Tom from Beyond Sports, and you're listening to For the Love of Wisdom
with your host, Jason Johnson.
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I? Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
This is your host, JC Johnson, and today we're asking the question, who am I? The wisdom of identity.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. You are listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. And of course, you're listening on NorthCoastUnderground.com, where the underground starts with you. I'm here with my special guest, Will the Thrill from the Lord's Will Show.
Thank you.
And before the break, we were discussing, as we will the entirety of this episode, we're discussing the wisdom of identity. And Will, during the break, you actually said something pretty interesting about surnames or last names, because before the break I had mentioned that one way to identify with people is to identify by, last name. You can say, your last name is Smith. Or in my case, your last name is Johnson. Okay, Will, your last name is Limley, right? But you had said something pretty interesting about how we even came about to have last names in the first place, and I think that would be pretty interesting to share with our listeners.
Now, see, part of how last names came to be was through immigration, because when people immigrated to new places, they needed to have a track of who the people were coming into their country. Now, let's say your family, I don't know where your family had come from, let's say they were from Europe, okay? If they immigrated from Europe to America, and your father's name is John, his surname, the last name would be changed to Johnson, because if you break it up, you got John and son.
Right.
So the son of John.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have your given name and your surname. Your surname's your last name. Your given name's your first name.
Right.
And when I read that, I thought it was pretty interesting. Now, the other thing is, last names are also different depending on the culture you live in, too. Because my last name is probably spelled half a dozen different ways just in one country alone.
Okay. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, because depending on where you're from, like, one thing I know from living in South America, I know that people would, they would call me Jason, but they would assume that my name was spelled with the Y-E, because that's how they spell it there.
Yep.
Because that Y has kind of a J sound, so when I wrote it out, they were surprised that it was J-A and not Y-E, But, yeah, definitely where you're from plays a big part. Do you, just offhand, do you have any knowledge of where your last name comes from, or is it close to anything else that's similar, maybe?
Well, I know my last name, because looking through my dad's family bloodline, it's kind of hard because there's not a lot of information out there because that side of the family doesn't have a family historian like my mom's side does.
Oh, okay. Tell us about that.
The family historian?
Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting.
A family historian is what they do is they research every aspect of the previous generations and record it to where future generations can see where they came from. Now, my dad's family, I believe they were from Germany. My mom's side is from England. And now my family immigrated here from Germany on my dad's side. My mom's side was brought here as a slave.
Okay.
Which, because at that time, orphans, because he was an orphan, they wasn't treated as well as what some of them feel they are today. And that's a debate for another time, which I will probably discuss on my show.
I mean, hey, you know what? Hey, elaborate a little bit on it. That's kind of interesting to me.
About how orphans were treated, or how my family came over here as slaves.
Let's start with your family.
Okay, my mom's family came. His name was John Cook. Cook spelled with an E, and it was like 1739. I could be off by the year, where he was brought over here on the boat and made to work in whatever conditions the people owned him said he had to be.
Okay.
And, of course, at that time, slavery was different for different people, but it affected all cultures, all walks of life. It's just some people got treated far worse than others.
Right. Now, it's just interesting to me, for those of you who are listening who don't know Will, you can't see him, but if a person were to just bump into you on the street, I don't know if their first thought would be, Will has ancestors that were slaves, because typically when you think of slavery, especially in the United States or anywhere within the Western world, you think of it in a particular context, specifically with, African slaves, that were, bought and sold during the transatlantic slave trade.
Okay. Well, you have those kind of slaves, and then you also have Asian slaves, because that's who built the Panama Canal, were Asian slaves.
Mm-hmm.
Just our history books have been written in a certain way to glorify the good and steer away from the bad so much. So
right.
I mean, because when it comes to how certain slaves were treated, that's where we get the term indentured servant, and where black people were brought in, you had white people. A lot of people used white people as indentured servants to give them power over the black slaves. You're still a slave. You're not making any money.
Right.
I don't care what the color of your skin is. A slave is a slave.
Right. And then, for those of you who, don't know the difference, typically an indentured servant or an indentured slave, that's somebody who they are a slave or a servant to someone, but it is not considered, or at least it doesn't have to be, a permanent thing. It's not like, okay, I'm an indentured slave today and I'm gonna still be an indentured slave 40 years from now. It's that this person, most likely, either that person specifically or maybe their father or someone else in their family may have had a debt that needed to be paid.
Yep.
And so this person was actually working in order to pay off that particular debt. Now, if they never paid off that debt, then they probably would be slaves for life. But that wasn't supposed to be the point.
Nope. Now, my forefather on my mom's side, he was an indentured servant, paid off his debt, and then paid off his wife's debt. And ended up getting Cook County, West Virginia. That's land that my family has owned.
Wow, that's very important. That's very good for anyone that's listening, especially for you husbands listening. It's important to not only pay your debts, but also help take care of your wife's debts as well, right? Because
yes, sir.
When you're married, hey, if something affects her, it affects you, and vice versa, right?
Exactly. Kind of going through some financial problems now to where she's helping me out, but things will change. Things will get better.
Oh yeah, most definitely, and especially when you have faith that you're going to get through it, when you support each other, when you help to push each other, then you know that ultimately, yeah, you go through some rough seasons, but things are going to be well.
Yep.
In the grand scheme of things. So it's definitely an important perspective to have. But as it relates to identity, I think it's very important. You discussed that you have knowledge of family that goes back to the 1700s, and I don't know if you even know of any family history that goes beyond that, but that's pretty impressive. And that's more than what a lot of people know about their own family background. And I think that knowing who you are and where you come from really determines the paths that you take in life, the decisions that you make, the self-worth that you have, and I think it's important, especially now with technology, Ancestry.com, 23andMe, sources like that. We're really able to dig deeper into where we come from. But for a lot of people, especially for example, for African Americans in the United States, I know that it's very difficult to trace back. It's hard to say, oh yeah, I have an ancestor who is originally from, Nigeria or from South Africa, and he came in 1800. Usually it's not like that, because
they were brought here against their will.
Right, and with the transatlantic slave trade, with African slaves, part of the scheme there was to have them forget about where they come from, so that they would lose hope, so that they would forget about who they are. And some of that has still affected people to this day, but more on that after the break.
Hey everybody, you're listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets.
With your host, Jason Johnson.
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I? Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
This is your host, JC Johnson, and today we're asking the question, who am I? The wisdom of identity.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. You are listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. I'm here today with my special guest, Will the Thrill.
What's up? How's everyone doing today?
Yeah, and we had a pretty interesting discussion before the break. Will, you were telling us about your family background. I thought that was pretty cool. You were saying that you have a family historian that was able to trace your family roots back to the 1700s. A lot of interesting things. You talked about indentured servants in your family. You talked about them buying their own freedom. That was pretty interesting. That was pretty cool. I definitely want to touch more on that later in the show. But for right now, I just wanted to, for those of you who are just tuning in, today we're talking about the wisdom of identity, knowing who you are, where you come from, because ultimately that's going to determine where you're going. And one thing that we were discussing is how what we are can be broken down in several different ways. For example, relationally, your natural family, parents, children, siblings, cousins, non-biological family, neighbors, friends, colleagues, classmates, who you're related to definitely can help to paint the picture of what your identity is. And that could mean what other people identify you as, or even as what you yourself identify yourself as, because those can be two very different things. Usually they are. So when someone sees me walking down the street, their perception of whoever they think I am is probably different from my own perception of who I am, and vice versa. When I see them, I probably have an opinion, whether I'm right or wrong, about who they are, but I'm pretty sure it's way different from who they actually are. But a lot of times we just take a guess. We try to, make classifications and things based on past experiences with those who seem maybe familiar to those people, right? But part of educating ourselves is really having a better understanding of who we are, and then also having a better understanding of those around us too. So ethnicity is a big one. A lot of people are very, adamant about, making sure people know where they come from as far as what they are. And I'd like to just break down ethnicity by continent, even though we can go much deeper than that. But just on the surface level, right, we have, as far as continents, you have, Africans, North Americans, South Americans, Asians, Europeans, those who are Antarctic. I don't know any, but
the penguins. They're their own group of people.
Right. And then we have our, Australians too. But these can be broken down much further, but I think it's really necessary to identify ourselves by more than just those classifications as far as the continent that we come from, because really there's a lot of different things that make up who you are. Every single person is unique. We all have DNA, and no two people are alike. We're all different. Even identical twins are still different. You can still distinguish them. So
with that, it takes getting to know those identical twins, because if you're just meeting two twins for the first time, you're not going to be able to differentiate between the two.
True.
And that's why they like to play the game, let's switch on them.
Right.
And if you're dating a twin out there, an identical twin, bless your heart, and I hope you never make those mistakes. It is a problem you probably never want to have.
That is true. So, yeah, they can definitely play tricks with that. I've known some twins in my lifetime who, definitely, when I first met them, I had no idea of how to tell them apart. But in time, you begin to see, this person has they have a mole on their right cheek, or this one, they just have this laugh that's just a little bit different from the other one,
Now, I'm glad you brought that up. Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, identical twins.
Right.
I believe it's Mary-Kate that has a small mole on her upper right cheek. And that's how you can tell them apart.
Yeah, they're an interesting set of twins there.
Yeah. Well, that's an identity all in itself.
Right. Now, one thing that I think is really important to talk about, because we are going to get into race a little bit more as we get into this, and for some people that makes them uncomfortable, but I think that in 2018 we should be able to have a discussion about that, especially with just the history of the United States, all the things that have happened. I think that's something that's very important. So although race I think is important, and even just using the word race, I don't really like to use that, but I'll get into that later. I think that it's not specific enough. So in making ourselves distinguished solely by the color of our skin, I think we run the risk of isolating ourselves from the rest of humanity, and even isolating ourselves from the creator of humanity too. So we have to see ourselves as more than that. Of course, that's definitely an important part of who we are, but that's not all of what we are. And in the United States and in most countries in our world, race does exist. So I'm not one of those people who says race doesn't exist. I'm not going to say, I don't see color, because I do. I'm not colorblind. I see that people are different, but I try not to make a judgment about people based on that, because I've been done wrong by black people. I've been done wrong by white people. I've also been greatly encouraged and helped by white people. I've been greatly encouraged and helped by black people, Asian people, Hispanics. It doesn't matter. I've come across lots of positive and negative people in my life who come from all different types of backgrounds. So I feel that we need to really be more objective in how we view people, not just basing it upon what we think that they are because of our own prejudices, or any preconceived notions that we have based upon our dealings with people that maybe were similar to them, at least on the surface. But I think we really need to take time to get to know people. Like, what do you think about that, Will?
I agree 100%. We need to take time to get to learn and understand people. one thing I've been using on my Facebook and I used on my show yesterday, we are all in this together. It doesn't matter where you come from, where you've been, where you're going. It takes all of us to work through the problems that we have. In regards to race, I will say this. I view all of us as the human race. I don't look at, oh, well, he's black, so he must be African American. That may not necessarily be true, because you got blacks on all the continents.
Right.
Oh, he's white, he must be European. What if I live in South Africa? They got white people down there too.
Exactly.
And Asians. I mean, would you consider Russia part of Asia? Russia geographically is part of Asia. Would you consider them Asian?
Right. Yeah. Even the Middle East. The Middle East is not a continent.
Nope.
So it has to be on a continent, and most people don't realize that's in Asia. But I guess we just don't think of it like that. Or India. India is in Asia. But sometimes you think Asia, you think, oh, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, but it's so much more than that.
Yep, you got a lot more, different people groups, and through my dealings with the church and how to talk to people, it's better to talk to them as a specific people group than say, oh, well, you're black. Well, so what? Go ahead.
Real quick, Will, because we're about to go to a commercial break, but I want to leave you all with this, a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. More on that after this. You are listening to For the Love of Wisdom on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you.
What's up? It's your girl Queen Z from the Queen Z Show, and you are listening to For the Love of Wisdom.
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I? Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Who am I?
This is your host, JC Johnson, and today we're asking the question, who am I? The wisdom of identity.
Hey everybody, welcome back. You are listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. And of course, you're listening on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. So, this is your host, JC Johnson, here with my special guest, Will the Thrill.
What's up, everybody?
And Will, you were discussing something that was pretty cool during the break. Why don't you expound on that a little bit?
I was talking about how racism, I feel, is a learned trait. You're not born racist. You learn about hating another race because of family. And, even with my good and bad experiences of all the different people groups, I still don't hate anybody, any one group. There's a saying out there, I'm not racist, I just hate everybody equally. Well, I'm not that way. I want to love everybody through Christ who loved them first.
Right.
And I think, that's where some Christians have the hardest time, is learning to love and forgive because Christ did it first.
Yeah, that's pretty good wisdom right there. You want to say that again, just in case somebody just tuned in?
Yes. What I said was, people have a hard time loving and forgiving other people because Christ did it first. That's something, it took me a couple years of really getting into God's Word and, just following what God's plan was for my life, to realize, all these people that did me wrong, I probably did other people wrong, and I didn't deserve forgiveness, but I still got it anyway.
Right, and that's so true. Oftentimes we are wanting something. We are desirous of something that we're not willing to actually give out ourselves. But life doesn't work that way. It's just the law of the harvest, really. What you get is what you put out.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so that's very important. One thing as human beings, we are in something that is greater than ourselves. So one thing that we're going to discover as we discuss different things today on today's topic of identity, we're going to discover that regardless of who you are or where you come from, we all have a place as human beings where we dwell. And in the Word of God, it actually tells us in Acts 17:28, for in him we live and move and exist. Some translations say have our being. As even some of your own poets have said, for we are also his children. So in another translation in the ESV, the first was from the NASB, which is the New American Standard Bible. Now in the English Standard Version, it says, in him we live and move and have our being, as even some of your own poets have said, for we are indeed his offspring. So one thing, Will, that you had mentioned earlier in the show is that when it comes to identity, identifying yourself with your creator, I think, is very important.
I think that's really the first step in realizing who you are and what you are to be in life, is having that relationship with God, with your Heavenly Father. I think the next step is having a good relationship with your family, a good healthy relationship. And for those that don't have that due to circumstances beyond their control, I am sorry for that. I'm sorry that life is giving you such a rough shot right off the bat. But there is someone out there who loves you.
Yeah, that's really important. That's really important to remember. Remember, because we do go through a lot of different things in life. Sometimes we can even question, is there a God? Because life is so hard, because we're going through stuff that we feel we don't deserve, right? But we do have to remember that there is a God who does love us. And, just because something bad happens, it doesn't mean that he doesn't love us. Maybe he has a plan that supersedes what we're able to even really imagine in that moment.
I will say this, the human brain is probably one of the most amazing organs to ever come, that we have on our own person, because it will allow you to hold memory for everything you've ever experienced in life, but it holds more on to the negative than the positive, depending on the person.
Right.
Part of the identity after having a relationship with God and your family is who you associate with. I think right there is a majority of how people are going to know you.
Right.
Outside your family is going to know who you are, but if you associate with the wrong people, it doesn't matter what you did before that. It's who you associate with right then and there in that point in time.
Right. And so you said associating with the wrong people. So who are the wrong people? Who are the right people? How do we determine that? How do we distinguish the difference between the two?
Well, one thing is understanding what the Ten Commandments are. The Ten Commandments have been written on our heart to where we have that, moral compass, so, as some people put it,
right,
of what is right and what is wrong. The first 10 is the first 4 is between us and God. The other 6 are between us and man. So someone who's wanting you to steal, lie, cheat, so on and so forth, they're probably not a good person to be around. Someone who wants you to do something really serious probably doesn't have your best interest at heart. And those aren't the kind of people you want to be around.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely true. That is some wisdom for us, definitely, for today. We're actually getting ready to go to a commercial break soon. But when we come back, we are in hour 2. We're going to be continuing the topic of the wisdom of identity. And one thing that we're going to talk about, we're going to ask the question, does racial identity matter? In 2018, does it matter? Yes or no? If you want to, you can post your comments on Twitter. You can post them at Love Wise Podcast. That's at Love Wise Podcast. Or you can connect with me on Instagram. The handle is at Johnsonian Theory. We'll be right back.
You are listening to NorthCoastUnderground.com, where the underground starts with you.